Hey Begoniacs, this is Gonzalo here, but everyone calls me Gonzo, and I'm going to try and make my first ever YouTube video. I'm going to try and show you guys how to make this, a nice begonia bubble, where I keep my begonias, and yeah, it comes with a vent and magnetised lid, and begonias just live their best lives inside one of these. For this build, you'll need a cloche, and to get these you can either buy them online or at local garden centre, and the thing you're searching for is a bell cloche, and you can just type into Google plastic bell cloche and you should get some hits up from that. The ones I'm using today are 26 across and 20 centimeters high. You'll also be needing a permanent marker, some sandpaper, fine grit, I'm using 240 grit, some epoxy, some magnets, and for the base I'm using an acrylic football stand, and you can get these online quite easily, or you can also use a round takeaway tub, which is a great alternative. And if you also want to, for extra toughness, you can also have a glue gun to hand, which will really help to solidify the base. So the first thing we want to do is take our cloche and foot and place it on the top and find the center so it's even all the way around. And then what we do is we mark out with a permanent marker the inside and the outside parameter. Until we're left with that. And now in between these two marks is where we're going to sand. So the reason we sand all the way around here is so that the epoxy has something to fix to. And as you can see, all the way around there just roughs up the surface, and the epoxy will attach to that really nicely. It doesn't matter too much if you go below or above the line, but it just gives you a guide to make sure you're getting it in the right spot. Because don't forget, this part will be underneath, so you're not really going to see it. Now that the cloche is sanded, we also need to sand the inside rim of our base where it's going to be glued to the cloche. You don't need to do it too much, but just enough to scratch off the edge. You gotta make sure you do it enough so that the edge feels a little bit rough, and get right in there. You want to make sure you sand until all the patriarchy is gone. It's really stubborn, so you've really got to get in there and get all that patriarchy out. Right, now that that's all sanded, we can put the two together with some epoxy, which I'll do next. Now what we need to do is mix our epoxy. And I'm just going to use an old plastic lid, but you can pretty much use whatever you want. But just keep in mind that whatever you mix it on, you won't be able to use afterwards. So this I'll just be able to get rid of afterwards. So I take my 2-part epoxy, put what I think will be enough to put around the base, seal it back up, and now with the spatula or whatever you want to use that came with the epoxy, I just mix it up, and you want to make sure it's very well mixed. I'm using a quick drying epoxy which takes about 15 to 20 minutes, so you want to work quickly but not rush yourself, and obviously try and avoid getting this stuff on your skin, and follow all the instructions that comes with the product that you buy. Now that it's all mixed in, you want to take the epoxy and put it all the way around the inside of the rim. that will be making contact with the cloche. This stuff is fairly viscous, so it's not going to run off. Where you put it's pretty much where it stays. It may move very slightly with gravity, but that's about it. I'm putting a generous amount because anything that overflows will only stick even better to the cloche, create a more stronger bond. So now we'll take our cloche and the stand, and you can still faintly see where the lines are, which are a very good guide for where you need to place the foot. There we go. And I just like to press a little bit firmly and give it a slight twist to make sure that there's good contact with the epoxy, and I'll just leave it like that. What I personally like to do is add some hot glue all the way around the inside so that the base doesn't move while the epoxy is setting, and it also adds another safety layer to the cloche and the foot attachment. And now while that is drying, I can set it aside and make a start on the magnets. Place the magnets where they will end up in, and I repeat that again. And one more time. And this distributes the pressure that is put on the cloche to keep it closed. So I have 3 lots of 2 magnets each all along the cloche. Now you can attach the magnets using the hot glue, or my preferred method is to mark out where they are now, slightly sand the area that they're on, and then use the remaining epoxy to fix them onto the cloche. So I mark them off just using a pen, and I mark them at the top and below, just so it gives me the guide of where there needs to be sanding. Now that the area has been roughly sanded, you can place the magnets back on, and you can use the remaining epoxy that we made earlier. Just give it another little stir. And make sure you want to coat the top of the magnet around the sides of it. And you want to repeat this with all the magnets, both above and below. Right, so now I've left my cloche to dry, and yeah, it's great. You can just go ahead, plant it up, and don't forget you have some drainage holes at the bottom which you can close or open depending on your preference. And yeah, and you also have the vents at the top which you can also open and close. And yeah, have fun